It's no secret that the Blood Doctor is close to the top of my shit list, but why is that? Its Uber is objectively worse than stock in the crits, not being as powerful at starting or stopping pushes. Its enhanced Uber build rate is definitely good, but it's just a means to the end of its overall weaker Uber. The range benefit is really the only thing that it has that the stock or crits don't, but good doctors will be using their bow or darts to supplement their lack of range on the medigun. But all this is assuming the most optimal conditions. In other words, this is all just on paper. In a game like TC2 where shit can go very sideways very quickly, you will rarely experience these optimal conditions. So let's take this conversation off paper and figure out what exactly is wrong with the Blood Doctor. At its core, Blood Doctor is supposed to be a side grade to the crit screen, something which itself is a side grade to stock. The crits is at its best on defense, since you won't be needing to push through massive walls of damage. See, unlike on offense where chokes are obstacles to overcome, on defense, choke points are footholds that you can take advantage of to hold off the enemy. The crit screen is so good at defense because it can halt anything short of an Uber push dead in its tracks. On a class with splash damage like Trooper or Annihilator, full critical hits are devastating. Direct hits from a Trooper can one-shot everything short of a Brute, and from an Annihilator they can one-shot everything that isn't a spun-up or overhealed Brute. And if that wasn't devastating enough, the minimum slash damage that a stock Crockett can do is enough to one-shot a light class. And did I mention crits don't have fall-off either, so Troopers and Annihilators can turn choke points into piles of gibs from a very far distance. Now this seems very powerful, and it is. That's the point of the crit streak. You have to take lots of time to build up this very powerful and very committal asset in order to grant these godlike powers to your teammates, and it also removes your ability to lead pushes with the help of a fully invulnerable power class. The committal nature of a crit charge is why it's balanced. The Doctor is punished for wasting it because it takes so long to fully charge. But sometimes the crit streak can leave you hanging. In situations where your team isn't able to protect you long enough to get up a charge, or when your team doesn't have enough time to build up assets before the next assault, sometimes you need more damage now. And that's what this thing is for. See, it's meant to be a situational side grade to the crit streak, something with a much less powerful but much more disposable Ubercharge that can help your teammates eke out the extra damage they need to hold off a push. Unlike other weapons, the Blood Doctor's core design isn't completely asinine. Where the problem lies is purely in the numbers. The real problem with the Blood Doctor is how blatantly overtuned it is, to the point that it's arguably better at making bad guys die faster than the crit streak is. The Blood Doctor's Uber is divided into 4 charges, which last for 2.5 seconds each and boost the patient with mini crits while active. It also shares the 67% faster Uber build rate on injured targets with the Vaccinator, which is what the Blood Doctor is supposed to be. The Blood Doctor is supposed to be to the crit streak what the Vaccinator is to stock. But unlike the Vaccinator, which actually has things to counterbalance its more disposable Uber, the Blood Doctor has nothing. That's right, the Blood Doctor does not have a single listed negative stat, other than the way that its Uber works, meaning that outside of using your charge, the Blood Doctor can do everything that stock can, unimpeded. You can give out full overheal at the normal rate and have no decrease in build rate while overhealing. In fact, the Blood Doctor's basic healing function can do things the stock medigun can't because of the 40% longer range, which is just, huh? Like, this is definitely a very useful stat, and I think it can be very balanced and useful on a different weapon, but its inclusion on the Blood Doctor just feels so random. But that isn't the end of it, because that isn't the most frustrating part of the Blood Doctor. The worst part about the Blood Doctor is the Ubercharge. The Blood Doctor charges so goddamn fast that there's basically no punishment for just pressing mouse 2 every time you see an enemy. A piece of advice I like to give to new Doctor mains is to always be healing. As long as there's a teammate nearby, you should be healing them to build a little bit of Uber and to give them a buff for when they see enemies. But with the Blood Doctor, the saying may as well be always be charging, because you gain Uber so fast that you lose nothing by wasting charges. The Blood Doctor's Uber gives mini crits to the patient for 2.5 seconds while active, and mini crits give your weapons 35% more damage and remove fall off, meaning that up close they help Troopers and Annies cross crucial damage thresholds to one-shot light classes, and it also improves their ability to harass enemies at long distance. And all that would be fine if it wasn't so disposable. Just to put this into perspective, the buff banner provides the same benefits of mini crits to teammates, and that takes 600 damage taken or dealt to fully charge up. This requires the Trooper to put themselves into danger and get into the action to build the charge, and when it's activated, it gives Trooper and his nearby teammates mini crits for 8 seconds and requires 3 seconds of blowing the horn, leaving him unable to attack. Using all 4 of the Blood Doctor charges grants your patients 10 seconds of mini crits, and the charge grants the mini crits instantaneously when the right mouse button is pushed. And this charge is divided into 4 bursts rather than one committal 8-second long buff, meaning that it can just be thrown out carelessly to deal with single targets rather than being an asset that you have to conserve and commit to using. So the weapon that is supposed to be less committal and have a more disposable charge is both better at commitment than certain other weapons and also better at conserving your charge. So a weapon that's supposed to be more disposable, better at bailing out your teammates for free, is actually better than other weapons that are meant to be committal when you decide to commit to it. The Blood Doctor will absolutely let you get away with using it like a brain-dead idiot, just spamming the charge whenever you see an enemy, but in the hands of a doctor with a functioning brain, it can be absolutely infuriating and downright overpowered when paired with certain patients. Whenever your team tries to start a push, you're going to be constantly facing a stream of mini crits, and if you ever catch the doctor in his pocket out on a flank, don't worry, because if it wasn't enough that the doctor's pocket had a constant stream of 24 health per second, that trooper or annihilator can now one-shot you if the doctor decides to press the other button on his mouse. And God help you if it's a brute arsonist or a flanker. And if this wasn't punishing enough, the Blood Doctor does even more to punish you for dealing damage to the doctor's patient, because not only does it build Uber 67% faster on wounded patients, but a patient taking damage will grant the doctor additional Uber for free. For 0 cost, the Blood Doctor builds additional Uber when the doctor's patient takes damage. I'm not sure what baffles me more, the fact that this stat even exists or the fact that it's listed in gray. This stat was actually a holdover from how the Blood Doctor used to work, where Uber was built by patients taking damage rather than just by healing. And this design for the Blood Doctor was actually balanced, because Uber was a more committal asset that you were punished for wasting. Was it bad? Absolutely, but did it need to be buffed to this degree? No! I cannot make it clear enough how big of an impact this stat makes, because if you're doing what a doctor is supposed to be doing, healing injured teammates on the front lines, your Uber will fill completely in a fraction of the time it takes any other medigun to build a full charge. It's so crazy that you can build Uber faster than you can actually use it. The enemy team is punished for dealing damage to your patients and not immediately killing you, and a good doctor is well aware of how badly the enemy team wants you dead even if he isn't using the Blood Doctor. So in order to use the Blood Doctor, you have to change absolutely nothing about your normal doctor playstyle, and in fact it makes that even easier due to the extra medigun range, and your Uber is so disposable that there's no reason to not be spamming it constantly. And while it doesn't grant godlike powers to the patient, it makes every single one of their attacks 35% more effective. And that's really what it boils down to. The Blood Doctor doesn't require any extra skills in order to use effectively. It takes the class's most valuable, most powerful, and most strategically complex asset and evolves it into something you just spam constantly to win any fight for free. In other words, it's just way too easy to do well when you have the Blood Doctor equipped. And I get it, not everybody wants to sink the amount of time required to get good at this game into the game. And it's fine for weapons to just be easy and fun to use. Not everything needs to have a super high skill floor in order to make the game fun. But weapons shouldn't reward you for playing like an idiot. They should encourage you to get better at the game and make the process fun. I am a doctor main, and will I abuse this thing if my team is really shit and really needs the help? Yes. But do I think this thing needs a nerf badly? Yes, yes, yes. And fixing this thing wouldn't even be difficult because the issue lies solely in the numbers. All you have to do is change 2 things in order to completely resolve the issue. Either bring back the slower build rate when it's healing things that aren't damaged, remove the extra building from patients taking damage entirely, remove the range boost, or only make it have 2 charges rather than 4. Take your pick of those, then give it a small nerf to either its overheal rate or amount to make it an actual side grade to the crit screed, and you could fix basically everything that is wrong with the Blood Doctor. Oh, and one last thing. Did you know this thing could be used to mini-crit boost sentries? Why, Dorcas? Why is this a thing? As always, subscribe for more.